Okay, so this is Wusik ZR, and this is the latest beta version. I have added a lot of new features to it, especially the filter, the effects, and the extra zones, and also the filter envelope and pitch envelope. And I'm going to show just a bit of how the interface works. There are no presets yet, I'm still working on those, but you can already download this beta version if you have purchased it. And the first feature that I have changed is the sizing of the interface. You can go on the bottom and change the height of the interface a bit. There's a minimum height that you can go, it's the minimum one, and can go as long as you have space on your window. So that's one of the new features. On the standalone version, you can click on the Wusik logo here and select audio and MIDI settings. So you can change the audio output and the MIDI input. You click test to test the audio if it's not clipping or having some buffering problems. And the interface of the Wusik ZR is just as you see in here. You have a master area. You have the three envelopes, amplitude, filter, and pitch envelopes. They're all separated. You have the filter with the option to use the envelope or not. You have all the four wave banks that you can load. You have a very large selection of waveforms, wave banks. Then you have the static layers. So let's say, let me remove this one. I want to use, like, let's say, one sequenced layer. I just click on add new here on the bar, and then add the sequenced layer, and I can add the number of steps I want. Can add a static layer if I want, or let's say I want 3 static layers with different fine tunings for each layer. And I also can change the waveform. This new version has a new waveform selector. You can right click and select if you want auto close on selector or not. If you disable that, you can keep selecting waveforms and pressing a node. And you hear the new waveform that you have selected. The same goes for the sequence layers. Each step you can select a different waveform. And you can also add effects. And effects are VST plugins. You can manage those click on Wusik logo, plugins manager, or manager, I think it's manager. And you can add all the plugins you want to use. By default, it comes with all the ones you are seeing here. The MIDI collection, which is open source. The NVIDIA, I don't know how to call this Italian company. I have a license to include the Reverb DX slides and the studio reverbs. They are included here. So you can add those out if you want. And I also improved it. The interface is working much faster now. And on all the layers, you can see there is a small knob here, between next to tune. Actually, this should be between tune and fine. So I'm going to move this on the next version. But this is the envelope pitch. So you can adjust that. And what else can I think about it right now? This LED here is the master limiter. You can disable the master limiter. And the static layers and sequence layers has a plus here that if you click, change to a multiplication icon, which means it's going to multiplicate all the layers to this point with the next one. So you can get some ring modulation using 2 layers or more. And you can right click and do a boost of the volume, because usually when you do a ring modulation, the volume goes a bit lower, so you can boost the volume here. but the boost also works on the regular adding layers. The zones, you have 4 zones. Each zone, its own settings. All the settings you see here on the screen goes into each zone. So each zone is like having its own synth with all the master, the envelopes, the filter, the wave banks, everything, including the effects. And you can see there's a LED. When there's nothing on a zone, the LED stays off. So let me add this on zone 2, static layer, I'm going to add a new one. And you can see now the LED is on. Because on this zone, there's something that's going to be playing. Otherwise, it goes dark and the zone is not played, so it's ignored. So it doesn't process the envelopes and, and the other things, sorry, related to that. Let me drink some water. So on the next videos, probably tomorrow or after tomorrow, I'm going to show more how to work with the layers and everything else. But it's basically what you see on the screen. You have the MIDI channel. You can select which channel is going to react for this particular zone. The quality of the oscillators for the waveforms, the wave playback. You have draft, normal, high, and higher. So this sets how many times the code oversamples. Draft, I think, is 8, normal is 16, high is 32, and higher is 64. But 16 is usually very good. Then you have the pitch bend settings, how many notes the pitch bend is going to bend. The octave selection for this zone, you can change the octave. Then you have the unison, the number of voices from mono to the 32 voice, and the unison uses the number of voices you have selected. So you select 4 voices and you turn on unison, it's going to use 4 voices for the unison. Then you have the volume of the zone. There is no master volume for all zones, there's just the volume for each zone. The envelope, you have an option to loop an envelope, so it's going to act like an LFO. So it's going to loop the attack, the decay, and sustain portion of the envelope. So this is very handy to create some sort of movement to the sound. Then you have the clip. The clip is just going to multiply by 10 the output of the envelope, but clip to 1. So what happens is that if you have a short release, it's going to sound like it's holding the envelope when you set clip to 1. So let me do an example in here, just a quick one. You can see nearly 1 second release, and now I'm going to clip it. Oh, sorry, the amp envelope. Now you can hear that it's holding the envelope output. So the clip is very useful for that. And it's also work on the attack and decay, works on the entire envelope. The filter have multiple modes. The first one is a 1 pole, and the second one is 2 poles. I just name it without and with a plus sign. I don't know if it's good or not. This can be changed without breaking presets later, so if anyone has a better idea, but for now I just left like that. And you have a smooth option which applies a low pass filter to the frequency. So if you put this to the maximum and adjust the filter frequency, you can see there is a smoothing effect to the frequency. Then there's the envelope amount, if it's going to be positive or negative. And the limit is going to avoid distortion of the filter when the resonance is very high. So that's it for the filter. And that's pretty much it for this section, I would say. Then you have the amplitude, the filter, and the pitch envelopes. The filter is going to use the envelope settings on here, on the filter section, and the pitch is going to apply to each layer, to this small knob here. You can see pitch envelope there. You can use negative or positive. And I think that's it. The only thing you have to keep in mind, the effects, since I'm using VST effects, it can have multiple parameters. Let's say the studio reverb quad. So it's 2 studio reverbs into a single one. So it has a lot of parameters. So you have to screw the parameters using this screw here, or you can use the wheel on your mouse and it's going to screw the lines of each parameters, going 4 and then 8 and 12 and then 16. And the small knob in here is the wet and dry, but most effects already have a wet and dry. I just put in there in case the effect doesn't have one. For instance, this reverb here has no option for that, so we'll have the option here for having the right signal here, and the effect is going to be processed in series. So let's say you have 3 effects in here. It's going to process each one for the first, second, and the third. And if you want to move the effects, you can just click on the effect name, and you get a list of presets, if it has presets, and also an option to move to the start for the first one, or move forwards or backwards. So I have put in move to start. The studio verb has no presets, so I just show the option for moving. And I'm going to try to think on more things to say about it, but if you have any questions, please do let me know. And for the next video, I'm going to try to talk more about how the interface works. Another thing, everything you can right-click and select to learn MIDI remote option. This works with MIDI controller, MIDI pitch bend, and aftertouch. So I go here on the volume, learn MIDI remote, and I move my pitch bend on my keyboard and start moving there. And I can click again, it's going to show that it's MIDI controller 1. And let's say I want to use the fine for the pitch bend for some reason. Up, center. If I right click again, it's going to show pitch bend remote. And I can click here to remove, and it's gone. What else? I think that's pretty much it. And I think that's it for this video. There are still a few things I have to take care of. So we're going to release a new version soon. And that's it. So thanks for watching.